Hi again guys, and welcome to another top countdown list for Gran Turismo 6, and this particular list is a slightly different one for a couple of reasons. For the first thing, we have 20 cars in this list, as you'll have seen, instead of the usual 10 or 15, and the reason for that is because in this category that we're discussing, there are just so many good cars, and there are so many good ones which aren't featured, but we just can't have an unlimited list. We've got to cap it off somewhere. Now, this particular selection is for the best vehicles, I would say, in terms of value for money, but especially for beginners. And as such, these vehicles have two primary things in mind. For one thing, of course, they have to be affordable, and the price cap that I've set on them is around 45 grand. But the second thing is that for that 45 grand or less, these have to all be vehicles which, at least to some degree, all offer great performance even without tuning, because of course in tuned form they're fantastic, but beginners don't have that kind of money. You're looking at around 200 to 300 grand to fully upgrade a car, so these vehicles not only are below 45 grand, but you can race them stock and still get a great amount of use and victory out of them. So let's get straight into the list. Now, first up, I'm putting the Mitsubishi Evo. The Evo in general, and also the Subaru Impreza, are great performance cars. Now, the Impreza could be viewed as equal on this list because they're so similar. If you want to go for the Impreza, you can, but for the sake of the list, I'm putting the Evo 6 in particular, and it's the RS Tommy Mäkinen edition. The reason why I've put this car here is because the Evo 6 is one of the most popular models. This is a full premium with a detailed interior and visual upgrades, and at 29 grand, it's also a lot cheaper than many of the other Evos. It's just a superb all-round vehicle for road and rally racing, and it's a dependable one. Next up, we make a slight price jump to 36 grand for the Renault Clio RS. Don't be fooled by the fact that this is just a little hot hatch. This is one of the fastest hot hatches in the game. It's got almost 500 horsepower when fully tuned, but even in stock form, it can give plenty of other performance cars a fantastic run for their money. This is the kind of car that, like most of the others on the list, has more of a long-term view. This is a vehicle which will last you a long time in racing in career mode that you can use for multiple things at multiple levels. Next up, we make a much bigger price jump up to almost our limit of 45 grand with the just under 40 grand Mitsubishi 3000 GT, or the GTO, in particular the more powerful model. This is a fantastic car. For the money, it's one of the most powerful and one of the fastest cars of this entire list, and this is for beginners who want a car which will dominate straight line tracks, even without tuning. This is a superb vehicle, and although it doesn't quite have as good handling as some of the others here, it's so quick all round, even in stock form, that it's just a great vehicle, and again with all-wheel drive, it's a great rally car. Next up, I'm putting one of my personal favourites of the list, the Mazda RX-8. This is a vehicle which is a little cheaper at just under 29 grand, and for that you get a rotary engine, which is great for fans of that engine, such as myself, and the RX-8 is, I would say, more beginner friendly than the RX-7. The handling is smooth, the weight isn't too high, and although it's not as quick as something like a 3000 GTO, it's still more than fast enough for beginners. Next up, at just under 30 grand, we have a car which is more for people who just want value rather than necessarily the car that's the flashiest, because a Mini Cooper isn't most people's ideal choice of a beginner's car or an ultimate end goal vehicle. But the fact is, the Mini Cooper S of this newest generation on the game is just a brilliant car. In tuned form, it's superb, but even in stock form, it can easily outmaneuver other more powerful hot hatches around a wide variety of tracks, and it's just a useful, dependable, relatively simple, but effective vehicle. Next up, we're returning to big power territory, but this time from the dirt cheap 22,000 credit Chevy Camaro SS. This is a car for people like me. If you want to start the game with a dirt cheap car that's got stupid power, incredible straight line performance and great handling, The Camaro does all of that. You're looking at 260 miles per hour flat out when tuned, over 700 horsepower, and again, all from a 22 grand car. Don't be fooled by its size and the fact that it is a Camaro. This thing can easily tussle with sports cars, and even in its stock form, it's a great career mode racer. Next up we have the much more modestly styled Volkswagen Polo GTi. This isn't an obvious choice, but at the same time it is a perfect beginner's vehicle. It's not overly powerful, it's not overly cheap, but it is cheaper than some on the list. But the great thing about the GTi is that it's so fast for the numbers that it has to work with. It's perfect for lower PP racing. You can use it for seasonals, career mode races, and definitely online, and get multiple victories. This is a car which is perfect for beginners. It's not difficult to drive at all, but it's also a seriously quick car. Next up we return to big power territory with the Lexus SC300. You can also get it from the Toyota dealership under another name, but it's the same car. For 35 grand you get even more power than the Camaro at just under 740 horsepower, but I would say that this isn't as good of a beginner's car because in stock form it's a little big, a little bloated, a little heavy. But if you're looking purely for sheer power for the money, it's another great option. Next up we have yet another big power car, and this is one of the most powerful of the entire list. Mechanically it's essentially the same as the Holden Monaro, but the difference is the Pontiac GTO has over 900 horsepower to the Monaro's 770. This car is monstrously quick in a straight line, and I would say it's more nimble than its size and weight would have you believe. It's a great choice of beginner's car, and it sits at around the midway point as far as price. It's not the best here, but it definitely ain't the worst. Next up we have a vehicle for people who don't really care as much about image, but just want a car that is good at everything. The Toyota Caldina. For 27 grand you get essentially a wagon or minivan, but with all-wheel drive, the power level of something like a Celica GT4, the handling ability of a Mitsubishi Evo or Subaru Impreza, all in a sleeper car package with monstrous launch, and even without any tuning. This car's a monster. Next up we have the only classic car on the list. This is a car which I absolutely love on Gran Turismo, and this is to broaden the audience to include those who may be fans of classic cars. This is one of the best beginners classics in the game, the Isuzu 117. For just under 39 grand you get a car that does have lesser specs than many of the others on the list, but what it does with the specs that it's given is really impressive. The handling is lovely to work with, the performance is great, it's an easy car to drive, and if you're a fan of classics you'll probably agree, it's a pretty good looking car as well. Next up we go back to the higher price section of the list with the just over 40 grand Audi RS4. We had this in the top 10 wagons list as well, and for good reason. This is a superb vehicle. Sheer power, sheer grip, sheer performance. This essentially combines the Toyota Caldina, the Mitsubishi Evo, and a Chevy Camaro all together. It's got that huge straight line performance, tons of grip, and although it's a little more expensive than some others, it's definitely worth it. We return to the rotary field for the next pick of the list with the FC shape premium Mazda RX-7. This car is affordable, and although it doesn't have as much power as something like a Supra or a Mitsubishi GTO, it's smooth, it's fast, the top speed is great for its power, and even without upgrades, the RX-7 FC has always been one of the best cheap, fast cars of the entire Gran Turismo series. Next up I'm putting a vehicle which will not surprise anyone who's been subscribed to this channel for quite a while, the cheapest car of the list, and like the Isuzu, one of the least powerful, the Daihatsu Storia X4. So why is it here? Well, for the simple reason that for 13 grand you get a car that's specifically designed to be turned into a rally car, and in fully tuned form, despite only having a 713cc engine, it can produce the power of an R34 Skyline, launch like a monster, and the fact that it's essentially a peanut with a steering wheel means that it's got fantastic maneuverability. For my next pick, we return yet again to big power territory, this time with another car that I really like, the premium spec Hyundai Genesis. For 33 grand, you get over 800 horsepower of fully tuned potential. It's one of the quickest cars here, and although it is a lot more tail happy than something like a Mitsubishi GTO or an Evo, it is a brilliant car when tuned properly. It's fun, it's perfect for drifting, and the range of use really does go far on this car. Next up, for a mere 24 grand, which is really dirt cheap for this vehicle, we have not an obvious choice, but kind of like the Isuzu, more of a niched one. This is for truck fans, and it's one of the best trucks in the game, the Toyota Tacoma X-Runner. It's rear-wheel drive, it's significantly lighter than many of the other trucks, it has 700 horsepower when fully tuned, and as well as being a superb drift car, straight line machine and rally truck, it can also get around the track at such speeds and with such ability that you can actually worry some sports cars. We continue the big power for low price theme with the next car on the list, the Ford Mustang GT. This is the non-premium version though, and although I would say that the premium version is the better car overall, the reason why I'm including this one is because it's significantly cheaper and actually is the more powerful, with over 800 horsepower in fully tuned form. This is a vehicle like the Camaro, the SC300, etc. that is for beginners who don't necessarily want something that's easier to drive, but just want sheer power and straight line speed for the money. And moving on from the concept of just big sheer power for the money, we go to a more subtle and more specialised vehicle, the S15 Silvia from Nissan. This is a premium model, it's relatively cheap, and although it doesn't have huge power, in fact it doesn't even have as much power as it deserves, I would say, in fully tuned form, it's just such a good multi-purpose car. It's a great track car, it's fast even in its stock form, and of course, it's a great drifter. For our second to last pick, we move to one of the most expensive cars here. At just under 44 grand, it barely makes it under our price window, but this car definitely deserves to be here. As far as beginner performance goes, nothing comes close. For 44 grand, the Supra is a 944 horsepower, 300 mile per hour machine that can drift, it can accelerate like a drag car, has the top end performance of a Le Mans prototype, and although the handling on the Supra isn't quite as good as some of the other cars here, it's definitely good enough to dominate plenty of beginners' races. And last but definitely not least is the DC2 Honda Integra Type R. For roughly 25 grand, you get one of the best performance cars ever made. Even in stock form, it has, I would say, easily the best handling of this entire list, and it's one of the best handling cars ever made. I'm not even a fan of front-wheel drive cars, but I love the Integra. It's light, it's fast, and even without tuning, it will easily dominate beginners' races. So any of these cars are definitely worth checking out, and what do you think are great beginners cars? Be sure to comment down below with your favourites, and if you'd like to keep up with other lists like this, you can do that by hitting subscribe or checking out the playlists at the end of this video. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.